So being an interviewer and a headhunter and a psychotherapist is not great for dating, but it is something that I will have with me the rest of my day. When I'm really in the thick of it with someone, it is my happiest place to be. I think if we really listen to what we truly believe we're meant to do in this life, we'll find our way to it, even if it's a circuitous route with its undulations, but I think we will get there. I believe that what I'm doing is pure and truthful and honest and good.
What do you do when you're really scared?
I put myself in a bath and I talk to all my inner little girls.
Ambition is not a dirty word. Impact is not synonymous with struggle. In fact, massive impact is absolutely possible with joy, fun, and sublime integrity. I'm Bianca Bess, author and founder of The Burnout Business, and this is the Big Impact Show, where success meets grace. I'm absolutely thrilled today to have with me on the Big Impact Show, Kathleen Saxton. Now, Kathleen has had a fantastically varied career, dabbling in entrepreneurialism and corporate across 25 years before she then pivoted into becoming a world-renowned psychotherapist. I am so excited about the conversation that we're going to have today about how Kathleen has redefined success on her terms. I'm so happy to have you here, Kathleen.
It's such a joy to be here, and thank you for having me. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to you, because I hear you've not got one, but you've got 2 books coming.
Later in the year, so I'm following in your lovely footsteps, but yeah, 2 coming down the pipe.
I mean, how on earth, we're here to talk about impact, but let's start with how on earth are you going to write 2 books?
Do you know what? I think in life with most things, if you want to do something bad enough, you will find a way to do it. And that's exactly what happened. I had a passion, as I'm sure you did, and I found the time.
Wow. Are they written then?
They're written, they're fully finished, and they're in production. Yep.
Good girl. That is a big tick. Big tick.
We'll see. Let's see if anybody reads them.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Based on your new follower numbers on your social platforms, Kathleen, people want to hear what you have to say.
I think they want to hear what we both have to say. I think some of the topics we're covering are so of the moment, right? And I think particularly for yours, talking about impact and, of course, burnout too.
Exactly. So let's start at the very beginning. Share your story. I talked about undulations, ups and downs, and the variety of different passions that you followed. Yeah. Can you tell us about your entire career trajectory?
I think it's been a series of adventures is the way that I think about it. And, I obviously started off in a traditional sort of media corporate world, Sky Television and Virgin and various places. But I always got to a point of feeling that I didn't want any closed doors. So when I worked on the sales side, I was fascinated by the agency side, and I was told, oh, you can't really jump across. It doesn't work like that. I'm a Taurian, so boo-hoo to that. So went across to the media agency side and then was told I couldn't really go to the creative side, and I found a way to do that too. So for me, it's always about how can I expand my understanding. I'm a very curious person about lots of things, I'm sure to some people's annoyance. So the minute I feel that there's something I don't understand, I seek to explore. And I think I was very lucky to have some people that believed and allowed me to make those movements across. And I never had any sense that I would set my own company up. I always thought I would work in the corporate world. I was born in the 70s. My favourite films are, The Secret of My Success and Working Girl. So both are individuals that start off in the post room and become the chief exec. That's pretty much what happened to me. So I think I really believe that anybody can be successful if you put enough energy into what you're doing. But interestingly, by the same token, and again, as a child, my father had his own business and he lost his business and we lost our home. So at 11, I was made homeless. So I really have lived and experienced, to some degree, one of the worst case scenarios as an entrepreneur. So therefore, never thought I would do it. But then the call of the wild came. And unfortunately, when the call of the wild comes, it comes as you have experienced yourself. And so I did. I broke away and set up my own business, which was called The Lighthouse. And I ran that for 12 years and I loved every second of it. So again...
And you were brilliant at it. Oh, absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. We cared, and I think that really showed. And again, we brought into it the notion that we would encourage talent to move across desired platforms and not try and keep them in one swim lane. So I tried to bring my own experience for other people's careers. And there's nothing more joyful seeing people go and do the thing they really want to do. It's a real privilege and a pleasure. But then, yes, the corporate world came knocking back for me with MediaLink and then on to Omnicom. And so bringing back those learnings and that energy into the corporate environment, again, was a complete pleasure that people would allow you to do that. And it's been wonderful. But I do think the undulations have been there. I've had some very difficult times and some really successful times. And I sometimes think, sort of light and shade. Maybe you can't have one without the other. But what it does do, and this is your your biggest topic, is it makes you really consider, what do you have within? Do you have what it takes to drive that success? Do you have what it takes to rescue yourself when something's not going so well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is all about that internal drive. I love the fact that you have expanded, as you describe it, into these different areas of life. But the fact that you've been so brave, having watched what happened to your father, and it's interesting because we really are born of the same era. There are so many similarities in our paths, and equally, I also watched my father lose everything. We didn't lose our home, but he went bankrupt, and so also experienced the sort of treacherous side of entrepreneurialism. So for you to leave the security and safety of your corporate world when you first heard the calling and decided to lean heart and soul into it, where did that courage come from?
I think the courage came from partly believing in myself and partly seeing the opportunity. I'm a real opportunist. So to me, I always see an opportunity, wonder why no one else is doing it, immediately assume that there's good reason they're not doing it because it's a terrible idea, then realise that maybe no one's just bothered to get round to it. I think in the UK, in the industry I was in, we launched something called Advertising Week Europe. Again, that didn't exist. I couldn't understand why it didn't exist. I thought there must be a good reason. There wasn't a good reason. It's just that nobody could be bothered. And I think in those moments, I can be bothered. I'm one of the people that can be bothered. And I think in the headhunting world, there's a lot of headhunters out there, but there is a real definition between those that are great quality and those that aren't. And again, having moved across sectors, noticing the reluctance of some of them to put their neck on the line for me, to argue for me to be put into roles, I felt that there was a need for a different type of headhunter, a little bit like a talent agent, actually. And that's the way we thought about it, which was, can we look after talent in the corporate world in the same way they're looked after in the entertainment world? And the answer was we could. It's just that nobody had tried to do it. And so when it comes back to courage, I think it's partly opportunity. I'm a commercial being as well. So my old chairman used to say to me, is there a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? And I used to really take that to heart. But so often when you really sat and spoke to people, they wanted what you were creating. It's just that no one had quite sort of knitted the pieces together. And I'm all in or I'm all out as a person. That's how I am. Yeah.
Wonderful. A true trailblazer. A true trailblazer. So what happened when you had successfully run that company for 12 years, then you hopped back into corporate? Did that feel like you were contained and restrained suddenly in corporate shackles, or did that feel like more expansion?
I think by then I was slightly older, my children were older, and every milestone birthday I've got to, whether it was 40 and then 50, I have felt more and more liberated. I have felt more and more authentically myself and politely less bothered about what people feel. And so, and I think that's the biggest liberation you can have. And I certainly feel that as a woman. So my sense was I can bring back into these businesses the kind of what's possible. And as long as I did it with grace and with respect, that maybe I could bring a positive edge to these businesses that might have needed it. So, and I certainly found at MediaLink, Michael Kassan is an entrepreneur himself. They recognised and welcomed entrepreneurial thinking and a sort of mischievous, a touch of devil may care and a touch of there's an opportunity here that if we really push the envelope, we can make it work. And I think the same for Omnicom. They were going through a stage where they wanted to look at reinvention of the brand, and clearly there's more even happening for them now. So they were open to what might that look like. And I think sometimes when you've sat on the outside and perused a particular industry, you can bring a perspective that is missing when someone may have worked in the business for 20, 30 years. So that outside perspective can be welcome, but you have to watch that the body doesn't reject the organ. There's always a risk when you're bringing in outside people into a very established organisation.
That's a very strong analogy. And you coming in with your fresh perspectives to shake things up, was that easy? Was that a challenge? And did you feel in any which way, like, whew, this is tough, because suddenly you were having to conform to, I don't know, hours of work and meeting schedules and agendas, different agendas, whereas you were used to leading your own agenda, CEOing your world?
Yes, I think it was difficult in positive and interesting ways. So I'd found running my own business was glorious and we had the most incredible team, but I was still running it on my own. And had I had my time again, I probably would have set the business up with multiple partners. I think it's very positive to have other air to breathe. Otherwise, you end up breathing your own air all the time. And that, I think, can be dangerous and doesn't give you enough perspective with hierarchy in play. But I also think with Omnicom, I moved to New York, so I had to really make sure I understood the cultural differences. And there's that classic belief, which is we speak the same language, but we really don't. So really understanding the cultural inferences within meetings, outside of meetings, inside of meetings, what that truly looked like. And on the social level for me, it was really liberating, because I could finally go to a country and say, I don't really know what I'm doing socially, help me. Which I would never have done in London. But professionally, to be the Brit in a very, dare I say, male, it was very male, the executive team there, and the only Brit in that team. Again, learning to navigate the corridors was very interesting for me, and I had to really listen to what was being said, but of course, what was not being said, and make sure that I understood.
Wow. So that was a huge learning chapter.
It really
and it's all
was.
learning.
Yeah.
We're always learning, evolving. We haven't even got up to what you're doing now and the exciting business that you're running now and the impact that you are making in the world that's different to the media impact. Can you tell us a bit about your journey as a psychotherapist?
Sure. So I'm a child of trauma. So I had a lot of trauma in my background. I've mentioned losing our home. I sadly got a lot of violence in the house as well. So my brother and I both experienced that. And it wasn't until my sort of mid-20s that I went into therapy for the first time. And I found it hugely helped me. I found an incredible therapist who really helped me. And I think lots of people that travel that journey wonder whether or not it's something they might want to do. I think having been a headhunter as well, I guess my connection is the human condition. I'm very fascinated by the things that humans will and won't do and what that really looks like and why people do things. And many years ago, a colleague said to me, whenever you're frustrated by someone, you need to get fascinated, because whatever it is they're doing that's annoying you, if you actually try and understand why they're doing it, you'll probably find a reason that will help you soften towards their view, even if they're doing something that you personally would never do.
Brilliant advice. Love
So when we ran the Lighthouse, we used to start every interview. We did lots of C-suite, as you know, with where was home? What did mum and dad do? What did you want to be when you were a kid? And on this particular occasion, I interviewed someone who said, I don't want to talk about my family. His whole body language closed up. And I said, that's fine. Where would you like to start? And he said, I'll start with when I left university. And I said, that's great. We'll start there. It'll be wonderful. And to cut a very long story short, at the end of our hour's interview, he actually said, the reason why I didn't want to talk about it was that my mum shot my dad. And in that moment, as you can imagine, anyone in that situation would do their very best to sympathise, empathise, of course, say that sounds incredibly difficult, all the things that you would say. And we packaged it up and off he went. But I remember that afternoon in my office thinking, he probably woke up and brushed his teeth that morning not thinking he was going to talk about that incident in his life. And so I felt I need to go and make sure I'm being trained in this. Maybe I'll don't go into an evening class in counselling or something light. I was running a business. I know I was very busy. I had my 2 children. So I went to Regent's University, and in my second lecture, my lecturer said to me, if you mess around in the mental health space, you could do as much damage as a brain surgeon. So you should really be training to be a therapist, not a counsellor.
Wow.
And I said, how long will that take me? And he said, 5.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Again, I'm in patient Tory, and I'm thinking 5.5 years. It took me 5.5 years. Thank God it did, because it gave me such a deep training and understanding. And actually, that's how I got into it, was a mixture of my own traumatic background, meeting some people that had trauma and wanting to make sure that I handled them as best as I could. And I fell in love with a profession that I hope I'll do the rest of my days. I absolutely adore what I do.
You are radiating the fact that you love your work as well.
Yeah.
So congratulations on
Thank
all the
you.
certifications and all the different boards that you're a member of in terms of your ability to practice. How did you manage the study and the career at the same time? Was this part-time, or did you literally hop out of life to go back and study?
I carried on. So lots of my fellow students were doing it full-time. It was a part-time course, but it was every week for sort of 2 evenings a week and most weekends. My children were a little bit older by then, which made it a bit easier. But I just scheduled. I mean, everything in my life is very heavily scheduled to make sure it happens. But it works, and there was sacrifice in that. I mean, I didn't really go to anything socially for 5 years. So any weekend birthday parties and weddings and stuff like that, I just didn't go to. I was studying the whole way through. But I knew if I wanted to transition, I needed to commit to it, and I'm so glad that I did. But it also helped my job. It helped the headhunting. It's helped me in my corporate career. Reading a room, reading people is a real, well, you know, because you do it. It's a super skill. It's a nightmare for dating, because you can't switch it off. You notice stuff all the time.
Analysing body.
Analysing all the time. So being an interviewer and a headhunter and a psychotherapist is not great for dating. But it is something that I will have with me the rest of my days. So I'm glad that I did it when I did it. But it also shows you can come to things later in life. And I meet people all the time in their 40s and 50s that say, I wish that I had become a nurse, become a something else. My view is, if you've got the energy, you can go back and retrain if you want to.
I totally agree. It's the ability to create anything we so desire with that right focus, energy and attention, isn't it?
Of course.
It's just choosing when we direct our attention into something that is most valuable to us.
Yeah, and we have limited attention, which I'm sure you talk about in your book. So then deciding, what are the things I'm no longer going to do? What's my negotiation of what I say yes or no to? And, you know, I'm relatively extrovert, so I like to say yes to most things. But then that's when I began to think about whether or not I was doing the right thing for me and my body.
So let's talk about that then. So your journey, so you're studying, but you're in corporate, you're living in another country, you've got children. At what point do you decide, okay, now I'm going to launch a business with my certification and I'm going to expand into the world, following my heart, having impact? At what point did you decide, this is it for me, I'm leaping, I'm jumping, and how has that journey expanded to where we are today, where I know you're a columnist for Stylist magazine, obviously you've written your books, you've got all your social media followers, which I'm very impressed at, well done. How did you decide to leap into this, and how are you balancing everything?
It was a very simple decision, which was, again, interestingly, having been a headhunter, I couldn't think of any role that I really wanted in my industry. And having been a headhunter, having represented all the brilliant companies in the business, and sometimes secretly thinking, well, maybe I'd like to go and be X, Y, Z or whichever company, I genuinely couldn't think of a job that I really would like someone to have called me up about or tapped me on the shoulder for. And it was a bit shocking, because the industry is so wonderful and I've really enjoyed it and it's been very good to me. But I realised at that point that was the stepping off point, which is, there's nothing I want to do any more than I want to be a psychotherapist. And when I'm in the room with an individual, I specialise in trauma as well, so when I'm really in the thick of it with someone, it is my happiest place to be. I think that's what I was meant to do all along. I just didn't really have the choice because of what happened in my background. I had to just get to work really quickly. I couldn't go to university. So I think I came to it late for some of those reasons, but that was the stepping off point, was there wasn't anything else that I really wanted to do in the industry that I had worked in for 30 years.
And it's interesting how much energy is then produced when you're following what really matters most to you.
And then I had lots of people saying to me, well, you'll never make enough money being a psychotherapist. And, you know, I have 40, 50 clients in the US and the UK, so I see lots of people individually every week, and that is my favourite type of work. But actually, I knew there was board psychology, there was board psychotherapy, so working with corporate boards in a psychotherapeutic sense. So Wendy from Billions is often the nickname I get. And I love that work too. Yeah, I love that work too. But facilitating away days, really helping groups of people, and then writing and doing other things at the same time. So I think if you have an entrepreneurial mindset as a psychotherapist, you can make an industry and a business out of it. I think, again, all of these things just need reframing, and to bust out of the traditional confines of, if you're a talk therapy psychotherapist, that all you can do is one-to-one therapy morning, noon and night. And I think there's many other things you can do with it if you combine it with the business world that you and I both come from.
Absolutely. And let's talk about, you just brought in the financial aspect of the corporate realm, which is safe, secure, stable. There's that steady income.
Yeah.
And then you leap. And there generally is a drop in that financial platform. And that's scary. That's really frightening. Talk to me about how you managed that moment of, okay, buy salary, but buy golden corporate handcuffs.
Of course. I think there was a moment in my life, so I think having had the children by then had left home, so I had less of a financial responsibility for them. I'd planned for it. The most recent time I've done it, I planned for it. So I made sure I saved a lot of money before I did it. So I had quite a good runway stepping into it, not knowing what would fundamentally happen. But I also think when you've sort of come from nothing, as I did as a child, I know how to live very frugally if I needed to. I can also enjoy the finer things in life. And I also think having run a business from scratch, so literally having 2 desks and no clients and then building up the lighthouse to be multi-million, you know, again, I can oscillate high-low. And I think anyone that's probably come from, you know, a relatively lowly background up, I think you've got it made, because you can, you know, someone could take me out for a bag of chips and I'd be really happy, but you could take me to Nobu and I equally know how to behave. Yeah. I think if you've only ever come from a privileged background, and wonderful if you have, but I think it can be very difficult to learn how to then fly low. So my view is that I know how to operate at all levels, whether that's with individuals, whether that's commercially in business. And I think there's a great gift in that, because I can work on a shoestring and I can work with a fantastic marketing budget. I know what to do with both of those scenarios, and I see that as a real secret gift because of my upbringing.
Fantastic. It's clearly all working
so far.
Yeah. Good for you. So how do you self-manage? You're an entrepreneur. There are a million different ways you can jump into a million different work streams. We know that. That's what entrepreneurial life is all about. How do you manage yourself in staying focused and staying able to be gracefully productive and keep all the wonderful work that you're doing having impact without you burning out?
It's taken me a while to learn it, and I think I've come very close to burnout a couple of times. Certainly towards the end of Lighthouse, it was a long hours. I was flying a lot, all the things that I'm sure many of your other guests will say on this show. And I think I began to notice that my recovery time from those things got harder. So I was finding that I was working, 80-hour weeks, and quite proud of it. I also did that thing where I bought the busy badge, which I thought was amazing, and now I've learned it's a fool's game. And then I was sleeping all weekend, or I was crashing at weekends, and I'd make up the time and thought, well, aren't I doing an amazing job? But the balance was not there. I think having come back from the States, I've really realised, and certainly at the age I'm now at, my sleep is really, really important to me. So I manage my sleep very strongly. You then have, as a fabulous woman, you have the menopause coming in as well. So thank God for magnesium, but realising that my sleep was the most important thing for me. And although I can do a Maggie Thatcher and operate on 4 or 5 hours, and I can bring it, really I need 7 or 8 hours, and it feels very, very different to me when I wake up having had great sleep. And the second thing, and probably the only other thing that's really critical for me, is connection. I'm definitely someone that struggled with loneliness. And again, like you, I have 1,000 people that I'm connected to and I love and adore and are around me, but I'm very careful about who I let into my private life, partly again because of my childhood. So connection was very important to me, and not having regular connection with my really close friends was something that I really noticed was important to me. So if I've got connection and I've had great sleep, I literally think I could run the planet, and I really feel sometimes I'm underestimated. I think I could.
I love that.
But when I don't have those things, I really notice it. So if I've gone many days without having a deep conversation with a good girlfriend or mate of mine, I'll start to notice that the lonely little one inside me becomes concerned. She becomes unsettled. And if I don't have decent sleep, I'll notice physically I'm not as held together as I might be. I don't make as good a decision when I haven't had good sleep.
Well, and it's proven time and time again, isn't it? If you have less than 4 hours sleep, your whole immune function diminishes
Exactly.
by up to 70%. So clearly your training has opened your eyes to that self-awareness, that depth of recognizing. I love how you describe it, the sort of the lonely little girl and that need to connect. I'd love to hear your advice for anyone watching or listening who's nervous that they are on the brink of burnout. And burnout takes many forms, but it starts with this fear of a loss of control.
Yeah.
And as that loss of control expands, the overwhelm starts clouding thinking, and it's a very quick descent into dis-ease in the body, in the physiology, which then can potentially become disease. So from your training, what would your advice be as a psychotherapist for anyone who is on the brink of feeling that they cannot continue at the level of productivity that their life demands at the moment?
Yeah. So the first and most obvious thing, which I hope doesn't sound too patronising, is you have to believe yourself. You will know that you're starting to head in that direction. And you will argue with yourself that financially, emotionally, societally, all of that, professionally, that you cannot afford to not be running at that pace and level. But there's a part of you that knows that something has got to change. And the first thing you have to do is begin to quietly accept, without having the need to do anything initially, to quietly accept that something has got to change, and you'll figure out what that may be. The next step for me is going and finding someone or a couple of people, could be friends, could be a therapist, could be a coach, someone to confide in, to say, I think I know what is about to happen if I don't slow this car down in some form or fashion. So being able to share it with someone, literally have it said, have it written down, getting it out of your system and out into the world means we've finally fessed up that something is going on. Then, of course, you can do a number of things, which is to figure out, okay, what's the easy target? What is the thing that genuinely I could afford to stop doing? And sometimes we convince ourselves that we have to do lots of things when actually we really don't need to. So even for me, social butterfly, if I've agreed to go to something, I don't want to let someone down at the last minute because I don't like someone doing that to me. But the truth is, the world will continue without it. Back to the corporate world, how many meetings do we sit in that we really don't need to be in? How many meetings are we in where halfway through we've figured out, I probably shouldn't even be here? Have we got the courage to get up and politely leave? How many friends have we got that ring us up every day about the same boyfriend story that we've heard 1,000 times? Can we lovingly say, I can't do it today, I can't be there for you today, and be honest about not having it? We're back to the oxygen mask that everyone talks about, but it's really important. So I think there's that. There's something about bringing your honesty to corporate conversations as well, which is, I feel that I need to ease off on a certain number of things. Most bosses, when you're great, don't want to lose you. And so being able to say to them, I'm running at 120%, I need to run at 90 because I need a little gap in there. I need to let go of some things. I need to give back some things that I don't have. The analogy I used to always have with a couple of the PAs I've had in my time who have been brilliant is, I can't see how many balls I'm throwing over the fence at you. I can't see across the fence. So once you're drowning in the ball pond, you need to throw some back to me because I don't know. So sometimes, often with bosses, they will happily let you throw some back. You've just got to tell them that you're drowning. And I think we worry, particularly in the UK, that we're seen as failing, not strong enough. Even mental health in general, we don't allow people to recover from. And it really annoys me. You might break a leg and you can't come into work, or you can't work at the same pace, but your leg mends and everyone gets over it. If you say, I'm struggling a little bit, I need a bit of time out, or I need a bit of capacity, I worry in the UK that we always slightly worry about that person. Have they come back to full form? When often they have. So to me, it's about the ball pond. It's saying, I've got too many things. These are the 10 things you want me to do. I need to give 3 of them back to you. Which 3 would you like back?
I think that is interesting, and I think you're absolutely right and correct. I think there's a shame, almost a stigma around admitting, I'm burning out, I can't cope. And there's too much of a pressure, definitely in today's with the economic volatility and the expectations to do more with less, so many redundancies, smaller workforces, and yet the pressure to produce is ever present, there's almost a fear of admitting, I'm going to have to chuck a ball back over the fence. I love that analogy. Do you find in the clients that you work with, there's a little bit of this stigma around, I can't actually tell anyone that I can't do all this?
Yeah, there's definitely a stigma and a shame, and often those things are very private to us. So we don't like admitting in case we're seen as being a weaker version of self, etc. The way for me through and around that is always back to an obvious thing, which is priorities. To say to the boss, the client, whoever it may be, I would love to do all these things for you, and I will be getting to all of them, but we need to prioritize. Make it a shared issue, because it is a shared issue. If you're in a business, it is not singularly your issue, it's the business's issue. So which ones are we going to prioritise? And we'll get to the others, but we have to prioritise for now. So make it a joint decision, go with it together. Feel no shame within that. Shame's difficult. So in therapy, we say that shame is one of the few feelings that we can't do much with. Whereas anger, for example, I love. You can do so much with anger to transform it into other things. Shame is relatively redundant, but it gets right into our system. So the minute we share something, the shame disappears. It kind of hides in corners. So you have to bring it out and very overtly say, what are we going to do about this? Not what do I need to do about this? What do we need to do about this?
So you're feeling shame.
Yeah.
You need to name it, acknowledge it, share it.
Yes.
And then it starts to melt.
Yes.
Wow.
When it's hidden, it will grow. Once you expose it to light, it dissipates. And I think that is a little bit of a cultural thing. I don't see it as much in the States, for example, but I definitely see it in the UK. But it's trying it for the first time and realising that actually it was okay. Have you got the courage to do it? That's why when you see leaders that are willing to do that, it's magical, because they're leading the charge. But when you're in companies that don't like to admit that anything's going wrong or is too difficult, that's where you find people hidden in corners, and that's where someone out of nowhere gets to burnout and nobody saw it coming.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually, it's this whole, there's a pressure I see today where as we grow up and we grow into life, our lives naturally expand, our careers expand where we have more responsibility. Simultaneously, we potentially get partners and houses that we need to do DIY in. We get children, perhaps pets. It keeps on expanding and expanding.
Yeah.
And at no point are we really primed or taught in school or along the way, this is how you manage all that expansion. And instead, we're sort of lulled into this expectation that have it all, you're having it all, that's what success is. And what you've just described is this very mature and brave moment of actually confidently saying, not all. I need to prioritise. And that is key, not just in terms of the workload and the conversation with your manager, but really it's across the whole spectrum of life, isn't it?
It is.
Because I think that was one of my hardest lessons, is that you can't actually expect to be mum and entrepreneur and this, that and the other all at the same time. Something has to change. And I feel like that's really the work that you're doing, is really trying to coach and encourage and teach individuals to get that sense of self-agency, to say, actually, this is what matters most and this is how I can contribute most positively.
Absolutely. And there's something about that opening sentence. There's something about the, whatever which way you want to phrase it, which is, I want and would love to do all of these things. So I'm not shying away, I'm not shunning, I'm not trying to get out of something. It's just physically not possible. So which ones should we do first? There's something with that. Equally, I often have clients that come to me in a therapeutic frame that might have a relationship failing, a business that's struggling, a career that's wobbling, and kids that are playing up. And we're like, okay, we can hold all of these things and we'll work on all of them, but which one is the most important to work on first that will help all the other ones come through? Which one is ailing you the most? We'll start with that one, whichever one it is, and then we'll get to the others as we go. We can't tackle all of them.
No.
It's a bit like a house fire. You've got to start with whichever room is the source of the fire, and we'll get to the others as we get to them.
Exactly. And it's the classic wheel of life where coaching begins and you start to draw the pattern of which are the dimensions of your life where you're scoring lowest in terms of there's a void, it's not living up to that value set. So you are a lady of impact, very, very well trained now and practicing and just living from your heart. And it's wonderful to see. What's your definition of success?
I think it is to live a truthful life. And what I mean by that is to be as honest about who you are, what you need, what you believe in, what matters to you, and not to be swayed by all the noise. There's very many parts of me, I'm sure, that other people wouldn't like, wouldn't believe in, wouldn't want to be around. And that's okay. There's many people in the world. But if you are courageous enough to say what you really think and what you really feel and to champion and fight for the things that matter, I think you sleep well at night. I think when my time on this mortal coil is done, I will feel that I did everything I could in the time that I had. And I think if that is what's achievable for me, I will die a very happy woman, whenever that may be. I think so many of us feel that we can't quite express, or we don't ever get to fully flourish in what we wanted to do, or we feel somehow that the rules and regulations won't allow us. I don't think that's true. I think if we really listen to what we truly believe we were meant to do in this life, we'll find our way to it, even if it's a circuitous route with its undulations, but I think we will get there. And I think I've just about begun to touch the centre of what that might look like, and I'll see what happens going forward for me. But it is the greatest pleasure of my life to have stood bravely at times and been shot at for it, but felt a knowledge inside myself, which is I believe that what I'm doing is pure and truthful and honest and good, and I'll find the best way that I possibly can to articulate that in my lifetime.
That is beautiful and powerful. And it's really a version of success that's about that authenticity. And I know that that word is used an awful lot, but actually what you're describing is the power that lies within that true selfness.
Yeah. It can be lonely at times, though, because sometimes you might stand alone in that thought until some others catch up with you. Or if you're going to pioneer in anything, that often, you might have tall poppy syndrome. And at times that can be overwhelming, or it can make you hesitate. But if you truly tune in and listen hard enough, if that pilot light, as I call it, within you is still a light, then the chances are you're onto something, and you've got to go for it.
Love it. I really love it. I love your energy. Just 2 more questions. What do you do when you're really scared?
I put myself in a bath and I talk to all my inner little girls. So I think of all of us like a Russian doll. We've all got multiple parts within us, and any of you that have done internal family systems therapy or anything like that knows that we have a public persona that we're probably sitting with today, and then when we're in the green room we'll be a little bit of another version. We have all these versions of ourselves, and we have bold ones, scared ones, outrageous ones, mischievous ones, all sorts of types. When my scared one comes present, I need to put her in the bath, I need to make her some cheese on toast, I need to tuck her into bed, and I need to take care of her, because that's what she didn't get as a kid. That's why she got developed, as to be frightened. And I now know as a mother and as an adult woman how to take care of her, and that's what I do.
I love that. I am absolutely going to try that and use that. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Final question.
Yes.
What's your big dream?
I had to really think about this because I have lots of dreams, but I think my big dream is this. I would like to open a hospital by the seaside for people that aren't unwell, but they're just sad or lonely or bereft or a bit lost, and they need to check in and be taken care of for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, without question. And me and my team will sit on the end of your bed and chat with you. We will run you a bath. We'll go out on horses and chat while we're out riding horses together. And we will love you and take care of you in the way that you haven't been, which is why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And we're going to package you back up with tools and with love and a sense that you matter, and put you back out into the world. And there's a place in Waterloo Station. It's an old children's hospital. And if you look up, the engraving says the hospital for lying in. And I love a lie-in. I love to lie in on a Saturday morning. So it's somewhere you can go and lie in, and we will take care of you until you can take care of yourself again.
Oh, Kathleen.
That's my dream.
I love that. That's a beautiful dream, and it's all centred on giving and caring. And that's clearly what you epitomise. Thank you so, so much
You're very
for
welcome.
coming here today and for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom and your beautiful energy. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks, Bianca.
Wow, what an inspiring woman. What an inspiring episode. I think one of my main takeaways is Kathleen's true devotion to following what matters most, following passions, and not seeing any limits or any restrictions in age, in geography, in career choice. She really evidences how she has reinvented herself multiple times, but constantly honouring where her curiosity and her interests have taken her. And look how she is soaring now. She is such a brilliant example of someone who has absolutely stepped into success with grace. And I look forward to sharing more individuals in this series, and please join me on the next episode of The Big Impact Show, where I will be interviewing another ambitious soul who is showing us how they are doing success with grace their way.